Peter Collins stared at the shimmering envelope in his hands. The material felt like water somehow frozen in time, yet warm to the touch. The symbols etched across its surface glowed with a soft blue light as they rearranged themselves into English before his eyes. An invitation to a royal Zexorian wedding? Peter read aloud, his voice echoing in his small quarters aboard the USS Horizon. This has to be a mistake. At 28, Peter had spent the last 5 years as the youngest xenolinguist in Earth's Space Diplomatic Corps. His ability to master alien languages had earned him respect. But this invitation was unprecedented. Humans had only joined the Galactic Confederation 3 years ago, and the Zaxorians were known to be extremely private about their ceremonies. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. "Enter," Peter called. Captain LaVar Mitchell stepped into his quarters, her expression serious yet excited. "I see you've received it. This isn't a mistake, Collins. You've been specifically requested by Queen Viridian herself." Peter ran a hand through his short brown hair. "But why me? I've never even met any Zaxorian royalty." "That's what we'd like to know," Lavra said, taking a seat across from him. The Zaxorians reviewed thousands of human profiles before selecting you. "This is the first time a human has been invited to a royal ceremony. It's a huge opportunity for Earth." Peter examined the invitation again. The wedding was between Princess Lyra and Prince Doran of the Vesperian Empire. A political marriage, no doubt. Galactic politics at its finest. "When do I leave?" Peter asked. "Tomorrow. A Zaxorian vessel is already in orbit, waiting to escort you. You'll be gone for approximately 2 months. Lavra handed him a datapad. "Study their customs carefully. The Admiral wants this to go perfectly. No diplomatic incidents, understood?" Peter nodded. His stomach tightened with both excitement and anxiety. "Understood, Captain." After Lavra left, Peter packed his few belongings and spent the night studying Zaxorian wedding traditions. Their culture was complex, with rituals dating back thousands of years. As an amphibious species with limited telepathic abilities, much of their communication involved subtle gestures that could easily be misinterpreted by outsiders. The next morning, Peter boarded the Zaxorian vessel. It was unlike any ship he had seen before, organic in design, with corridors that seemed to breathe and walls that rippled like water. Slender Zaxorian with pale blue skin approached him. "Welcome aboard, Peter Collins of Earth. I am Kira, assigned to prepare you for the ceremony." Peter bowed slightly, careful to keep his hands at his sides as the protocol suggested. "Thank you for your guidance, Kira. I'm honored to be invited." Kira's large, almond-shaped eyes studied him curiously. Her skin had a subtle iridescence that shifted colors with her movements. "You speak our language well for a human," she said. In her native tongue, Peter replied in the same language, his voice adapting to the musical tones required. "I find beauty in the way your words flow like water." A look of surprise crossed Kira's face before she quickly composed herself. "The journey to Zaxoria will take 3 weeks. We will use this time for your preparation." During those weeks, Peter and Kira developed an unexpected rapport. Initially reserved, she gradually began sharing aspects of Zaxorian life beyond what was in the official guides. She seemed particularly interested in Earth customs. "Is it true humans only live for a century?" she asked one evening as they shared a meal in the ship's dining area. Peter nodded. "If we're lucky, how long do Zaxorians live?" "About 5 of your centuries," Kira said. "Though the royal family tends to live longer due to genetic enhancements." 500 years, Peter whispered. "I can't imagine all you must see in that time." Kira tilted her head. "Yet you humans accomplish so much in your brief lives. It's quite remarkable." As they approached Zaxoria, Peter noticed Kira becoming increasingly attentive to his reactions. She seemed to be evaluating him, though for what purpose he couldn't tell. When they finally arrived, Peter stood speechless at the viewing portal. Zaxoria was a water world with vast luminescent oceans covering most of its surface. Rising from the largest ocean was the legendary floating citadel, an enormous structure of living coral and crystalline material that seemed to defy physics. "The royal family has lived there for 12,000 years, Kira explained. "The citadel grows and changes with each generation. Their ship docked at one of the floating platforms surrounding the citadel. As Peter stepped out, the air felt thick with moisture. Pleasant but different from Earth's atmosphere, a procession of elaborately dressed Zexorians approached. At their center walked two figures wearing crowns that appeared to be made of living coral and flowing water somehow suspended in intricate patterns. King Thalassius and Queen Viridian, Kira whispered to Peter. Remember to bow deeply and keep your eyes lowered until addressed. Peter followed the protocol perfectly, bowing before the royal couple. Rise, Peter Collins of Earth, King Thalassius said, his voice deep and resonant. We welcome you to our home. When Peter looked up, he was surprised to find both monarchs studying him with undisguised interest. We have followed your diplomatic career with great attention, Queen Viridian said. Her voice had a musical quality that made the translator in Peter's ear unnecessary. Your respect for other cultures is commendable. You honor me, Your Majesty, Peter replied in perfect Zexorian. I am grateful for the invitation to Princess Lyra's wedding. Something like approval flickered across the Queen's face. You will be given quarters in the royal wing, usually reserved for our most distinguished guests. This announcement caused murmurs among the Zexorian court officials. Peter noticed several exchanging glances. Later that evening, a grand feast was held. Peter was seated surprisingly close to the royal family, though Princess Lyra was noticeably absent. The food was unlike anything he had tasted before, flavors that seemed to change as he ate them, creating harmonies like music in his mouth. King Thalassius approached Peter during the meal, holding a ceremonial chalice filled with a glowing blue liquid. It is our custom to welcome honored guests with the water of life, the king announced loudly enough for all to hear. Peter had read about this ritual. Normally, servants would offer the chalice to guests, receiving it directly from the king was a rare honor. Following what he believed was proper protocol, Peter accepted the chalice with both hands and drank from it without hesitation. The entire hall fell silent. The king smiled enigmatically while the queen looked pleased. Court officials exchanged significant glances, some appearing shocked, others curious. Peter wondered if he had made a mistake, but the king placed a hand on his shoulder. Welcome, Peter Collins. The stars have guided you to us for a purpose greater than you know. As the feast continued, Peter couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, something beyond his understanding of Zexorian customs. Whatever it was, he had a growing suspicion that his role at this wedding might be more complicated than simply being an observer. Later that night, Peter couldn't sleep. The events at the feast kept playing in his mind. He stood at the window of his luxurious quarters, watching the 3 moons of Zaxoria cast rippling lights across the vast ocean below. The floating citadel hummed with a gentle vibration that seemed almost alive. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Peter opened the door to find Kira standing there, but something was different about her. Her royal attendant uniform was gone, replaced by elaborate robes with symbols that matched those on the king and queen's attire. May I enter? She asked. Peter stepped aside, confused by her appearance. Of course. Once inside, Kira's formal demeanor melted away. She sighed and sat on one of the cushioned benches. I must tell you something important, Peter Collins. You're not just an attendant, are you? Peter guessed, finally understanding the strange looks and special treatment. She smiled, her skin shifting to a deeper blue. No, I am Princess Lyra, Peter felt his knees weaken. He quickly sat down. But why the deception? I needed to know who you truly were, away from the formality of court, Lyra explained. My parents have been searching the galaxy for someone worthy of ... She paused, choosing her words carefully. For someone worthy of our kingdom's trust. So you were evaluating me during our journey? Lyra nodded. I watched how you treated everyone with the same respect, regardless of their status. How you genuinely wanted to understand our culture, not just memorize it for political advantage. But why me specifically? There are thousands of diplomats in the Confederation. Lyra's expression turned serious. The chalice you accepted from my father tonight, do you understand what it means? Peter's stomach tightened. I thought it was just a welcome ritual. When accepted directly from the king's hands, it is much more, Lyra said. It is part of an ancient binding ceremony, traditionally reserved for those entering the royal family. Peter stood suddenly. Entering the royal family? You mean like marriage? Lyra confirmed. My marriage. But the invitation said you were to marry Prince Doran of the Vesperian Empire. That was the plan, Lyra admitted. A political union to strengthen our alliance. But Zaxorian law allows the monarch to present the chalice to another if they believe they have found someone more worthy. Peter paced the room. This is a misunderstanding. I didn't know what I was agreeing to. My father knew that, Lyra said, which makes his choice even more significant. He believed you would accept our ways once you understood them. Before Peter could respond, another knock came at the door. A royal messenger informed them that an urgent communication from Earth had arrived. In the communication room, Admiral Sam Wilson's stern face filled the screen. Collins, what have you done? Sir, there's been a misunderstanding. We're receiving reports that you've somehow inserted yourself into a royal marriage arrangement, the Admiral interrupted. The Vesperians are furious. They're threatening to withdraw from the Confederation. Over this, Peter tried to explain, but the Admiral wasn't interested. I'm bringing a diplomatic team to sort this out. Don't do anything else until we arrive. That's an order. The screen went dark. Peter turned to find King Thalassius standing behind him. Your people seem concerned, the king said. With respect? Your Majesty, they have reason to be, Peter replied. I've accidentally interfered with an important political alliance. The king gestured for Peter to walk with him. They entered a corridor Peter hadn't seen before, where the walls were made of living coral that glowed with inner light. Embedded within were what looked like ancient artifacts and historical records. Do you know why Zaxorians live so long, Peter Collins? The king asked. Your advanced biology, I assume. Partly, but also because we take great care with important decisions. The king stopped before a wall showing the images of past rulers. The marriage between Lyra and Prince Doran was arranged 50 of your years ago, when they were children. But in that time, the Vesperians have changed. Their emperor grows hungry for power. You don't trust them anymore? Peter realized. We needed an honorable way to break the arrangement without causing offense. When we discovered Earth and studied your people, we saw potential. Particularly in you. Peter felt a chill. You planned. We created an opportunity, the king corrected. One you were free to reject, but you didn't. You treated my daughter with respect when you thought she was a simple attendant. You studied our ways with genuine interest, and you accepted the chalice without hesitation, showing trust. But I can't marry Princess Lyra. I barely know her. But by Zaxorian standards, your 3 weeks together were quite thorough, the king said with amusement. Many royal marriages begin with less. On Earth, things are different, indeed, which is why there is another option. The king's expression turned serious. The right of challenge. Any marriage candidate may prove their worthiness through a series of ancient trials. If you complete them, none can dispute your place, not even the Vesperians. And if I refuse both options? Then you return to Earth, and we face the consequences of a broken alliance. War with the Vesperians becomes likely. The weight of responsibility settled on Peter's shoulders. His personal choices now affected 2 civilizations, possibly more. The next morning, Princess Lyra found Peter on one of the outer balconies of the citadel, watching the sunrise turn the ocean into a canvas of purple and gold. My father told me about your conversation, she said. I still don't understand why your parents would risk so much on someone they don't know, Peter said. Lyra stood beside him. When you've lived as long as they have, you learn to recognize something rare when you see it. And what did they see? In me? Adaptability? Humanity's greatest strength? Other species evolve over millions of years to master their environments. Humans adapt in a single lifetime. She touched his hand gently. I saw it too during our journey. The way you learned our language, understood our customs, adjusted to our food and gravity. I still have a duty to Earth, Peter said. And I to Zaxoria, Lyra replied. Perhaps those duties aren't as opposed as they seem. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a Vesperian ship. From the viewing window, Peter could see it was larger and more heavily armed than the vessel that had brought him. "Prince Doran has arrived," Lyra said, her skin darkening to a deep indigo, a sign of stress, Peter had learned. He will not surrender his claim easily. Peter watched the ship dock. His decision would affect not just his future, but potentially the future of human-alien relations for generations to come. "I'll meet with my superior officer when he arrives," Peter said finally. "Then I'll decide whether to accept the challenge." Lyra's skin lightened slightly. "That is fair." She turned to leave but paused at the door. "Whatever you choose, Peter. Collins, know that I valued our time together. Not as princess and diplomat, but as two people learning about each other's worlds." As she left, Peter wondered if he was imagining the connection between them, or if something real had developed during their journey to Zaxoria. Either way, he now stood at the center of a galactic incident that would test not just his diplomatic skills, but his courage as well. Admiral Sam Wilson arrived with a small Earth delegation 6 hours later. Their shuttle docked at one of the lower platforms of the floating citadel, where Peter waited to greet them. The Admiral stepped out first, his face tight with barely controlled anger. "Collins," he said curtly, "we need to talk." Privately. Peter led him to a small meeting chamber the Zaxorians had prepared. As soon as the door closed, Admiral Wilson turned on him. "Do you have any idea what you've done? We spent 3 years building trust with the Galactic Confederation, and you might have destroyed it in one night." "Sir, I didn't know what accepting the chalice meant," Peter explained. "It wasn't in any of the briefing materials." "Because it's not supposed to be offered to outsiders," Wilson said, pacing the room. "The Vesperians are calling this a deliberate human plot to gain influence. They're threatening to withdraw from the Confederation and take 7 allied systems with them." Peter took a deep breath. "The king has offered me a way to fix this. There's an ancient tradition called the Right of Challenge. If I complete it, my position would be legitimate under their laws." Wilson stared at him. "You can't be serious. You're actually considering going through with this? The alternative might be war between the Zaxorians and Vesperians. Earth could be caught in the middle. Your job was to observe a wedding, not become part of one." Before Peter could respond, the door opened. Prince Doran of the Vesperian Empire stood there, flanked by guards. Unlike the blue-skinned Zaxorians, Vesperians had gray-green skin with scale-like patterns. Their eyes were vertical slits, giving them a perpetually suspicious look. "So this is the human who thinks he can take my place," Doran said, his translator making his words sound harsh and metallic. Peter stood straight. "Prince Doran, this situation wasn't my intention." "Your intentions are irrelevant," Doran hissed. "You have insulted the Vesperian Empire. We demand you withdraw your claim immediately." Admiral Wilson stepped forward. "Prince Doran, on behalf of Earth, I assure you this was a cultural misunderstanding. We're working to resolve it." "There is nothing to resolve," Doran said. "The human will renounce any claim, or there will be consequences for Earth as well." As Zaxoria, after Doran left, Wilson turned to Peter. "You see the position we're in? You need to back out of this, now. And if that leads to war, that's not your responsibility." But Peter wasn't sure anymore. During his 3 weeks with Lyra, he had come to admire the Zaxorian culture and people. And if he was honest with himself, he had developed feelings for the princess, even before knowing her true identity. Later that day, Peter met with Lyra in the Royal Gardens, a breathtaking space where plants from across the galaxy grew in harmonious arrangements. Water flowed in impossible patterns, sometimes upward against gravity, forming living sculptures. "Your admiral seems upset," Lyra said as they walked among glowing flowers. "That's putting it mildly," Peter replied. "He wants me to withdraw and return to Earth immediately. And what do you want?" Peter stopped walking. "I want to do what's right. For everyone involved, including yourself. I'm just one person. The peace of multiple worlds is at stake." Lyra's skin rippled with shades of blue and purple. In my culture, we believe that sometimes the fate of many rests on the choice of one. That's why the right of challenge exists, to reveal the true character of those who would lead. Peter looked out over the vast ocean surrounding the citadel. Tell me about these trials. There are 3, Lyra explained. Each tests a different quality we value: wisdom, courage, and compassion. No outsider has ever completed them. What happens if I fail? You return to Earth with honor, having tried. The alliance with the Vesperians would proceed. And if I succeed, Lyra's skin brightened, then even Prince Doran must accept the outcome. It is our oldest law. That evening, Peter met with both Admiral Wilson and King Thalassius. The meeting was tense, with Earth and Zaxorian interests seemingly at odds. I've decided to accept the right of challenge, Peter announced. Wilson looked ready to explode. Collins, I forbid it. This isn't your decision to make. With respect, sir, I'm already involved. If I withdraw now, we risk war between the Zaxorians and Vesperians, with potential fallout for Earth. If I try and fail, things return to the status quo. If I succeed, double quote, he glanced at the king, then we have a chance at something better. King. Thalassius nodded approvingly, spoken like one who understands the burden of leadership. The first trial was scheduled for the next morning. Peter spent the night studying everything he could about Zaxorian history and traditions. If wisdom was to be tested, he needed to prepare. At dawn, he was led to a chamber deep within the citadel. The room was circular, with a pool of glowing water at its center. The royal family was present, along with Prince Doran and the Earth delegation. The first trial is the Abyssal Labyrinth, announced the royal herald. The candidate must navigate the living maze that changes with each step. It will respond to your fears and desires, testing not just your mind, but your heart. Peter approached the pool. As he looked into its depths, he could see corridors and chambers shifting below the surface. You must retrieve the Crystal of Insight. From the center, the herald continued, you have until the largest moon sets. With a final look at Lyra, whose expression showed both hope and worry, Peter dove into the pool. The water felt strange, not wet exactly, but like being surrounded by a living presence. He could breathe normally, which was a relief. The maze stretched before him, its walls made of the same living coral as the citadel. As Peter swam forward, the passages shifted. He turned left, then right, trying to maintain his sense of direction. But soon he realized the maze wasn't just changing randomly. It was responding to his thoughts. When he thought about finding the shortest path, the corridors twisted away from his destination. When he worried about time running out, a dead end appeared before him. Peter stopped swimming and floated in place. This wasn't a test of navigation, but of mental control. The Zaxorians valued wisdom, the ability to understand complex situations and find harmony within them. He closed his eyes and calmed his mind, focusing not on his goal or his fears, but on understanding the maze itself. He felt the living coral respond, its movements becoming less chaotic. Peter opened his eyes and saw a faint path glowing before him. He followed it, not rushing, but moving with purpose. When new obstacles appeared, he didn't fight against them, but found ways to work with them. Hours passed as he went deeper into the labyrinth. Finally, he reached a chamber at the center. There, floating above a small pedestal, was a crystal that pulsed with inner light. As Peter reached for it, he felt the maze shift one last time. The crystal moved away, and in its place appeared images, memories from his time with Lyra on the journey to Zaxoria, moments when they had connected across their cultural differences. Peter understood then that the true test wasn't finding the crystal, but recognizing what was truly valuable. He reached past the crystal and touched the memories instead. The maze dissolved around him, and Peter found himself standing back in the chamber, dripping wet but holding the Crystal of Insight in his hand. The assembled crowd looked shocked. He completed the first trial, the herald announced, surprise evident in his voice. Lyra smiled proudly while Prince Doran's face darkened with anger. Admiral Wilson looked conflicted, torn between concern for Earth's interests and pride in Peter's accomplishment. King Thalassius stepped forward. You have shown wisdom beyond your years, Peter Collins. The second trial awaits tomorrow. As Peter left the chamber, he knew the path ahead would only grow more challenging. But for the first time, he believed he might actually have a chance to succeed. Peter woke early the next morning, his muscles sore from the previous day's trial. Sunlight filtered through the crystal walls of his chamber, casting rainbow patterns across the floor. He had barely finished dressing when Admiral Wilson entered. Without knocking. "Your success yesterday has complicated things," the Admiral said, handing Peter a datapad. "The news has reached Earth. Some officials see this as an opportunity for humanity to gain influence. Others fear we're being manipulated into alien conflicts we don't understand." Peter reviewed the messages from Earth Command. "What do you think, sir?" The Admiral sighed, his stern expression softening slightly. "I think you're in over your head, Collins. But I also think you handled that first trial with remarkable ... insight." He almost smiled at the pun. "Just remember that your primary loyalty is to Earth?" "I haven't forgotten that," Peter assured him after the Admiral left. A Zaxorian attendant arrived to escort Peter to breakfast. The dining hall was crowded with representatives from various worlds, all curious about the human who had passed. The first trial, Lyra joined him at his table, her skin glowing a warm, pleasant blue. "You've become quite famous overnight," she said. "No outsider has ever solved the labyrinth so quickly." "I realized it wasn't about finding the fastest route," Peter explained. "It was about understanding the nature of the maze itself." "Precisely." Lyra smiled. "The second trial begins in 1 hour. It tests courage, but not in the way most species understand it." The second trial took place in a vast chamber at the heart of the Citadel. The ceiling opened to the sky, where Zaxoria's 3 moons were visible even in daylight. In the center of the room stood a large coral structure shaped like a throne. "The Ancestral Communion," announced the Royal Herald. "The candidate must connect with the ancient Zaxorian consciousness that resides within the living coral of our citadel." Peter looked confused. "I don't have telepathic abilities." "That is part of the challenge," King Thalassius explained. "For a Zaxorian, this would test the courage to face the wisdom and judgment of our ancestors. For you, it requires the courage to open your mind to something entirely alien." Peter approached the coral throne nervously. As he sat down, tendrils of living material wrapped gently around his wrists and ankles. A crown-like structure descended over his head, touching his temples. At first, he felt nothing. Then a subtle pressure began to build in his mind. Images flashed before his eyes: vast underwater cities, strange creatures, wars and peace treaties spanning thousands of years. It was overwhelming, like trying to drink from a waterfall. Peter tried to focus, to find a way to communicate with the consciousness touching his mind. He thought about his respect for Zaxorian history and culture, projecting his genuine admiration for what they had built. The flood of images slowed. Peter felt a questioning presence, curious about this strange being who had no natural telepathic abilities, yet was trying to connect. Peter shared his own memories of its oceans and forests. Human cities with their chaotic energy, the first contact between humans and aliens, his own journey to become a xenolinguist. He showed his belief that different species could learn from each other, grow together. The ancestral consciousness seemed to consider this. Then it showed Peter something unexpected: images of Zaxorian elders watching Earth from afar, seeing potential in humanity's adaptability and creativity. They had been searching for new perspectives, new ways of thinking to help their ancient civilization continue to evolve. When the connection finally broke, Peter slumped forward, exhausted. The room was silent. "He has communed with the ancestors," the herald announced, sounding astonished. "They have accepted his offering of knowledge." Prince Doran stepped forward, his face twisted with anger. "This is impossible." "A being with no telepathic abilities cannot communicate with the ancestors. This must be some human trick." "The ancestors do not lie," Queen Viridian said firmly. "They have accepted him. I refuse to accept this farce." Doran shouted, "I invoke Valexkar!" A gasp went through the crowd. King Thalassius looked troubled. "What's Valexkar?" Peter asked Lyra quietly as he regained his strength. "Ritual combat," she whispered. "It hasn't been invoked in centuries. Doran is challenging you directly for the right to proceed to the final trial." Admiral Wilson pushed his way to Peter's side. "Combat? This wasn't part of the agreement." "It is his right under ancient law," the king said reluctantly. Peter Collins must accept the challenge or forfeit his claim. Peter stood on shaky legs. "What are the rules of this combat?" "Each participant may choose one weapon," the herald explained. "The combat continues until one yields or is unable to continue. Death is not required, but—" He left the implication hanging. "I accept the challenge," Peter said, meeting Doran's gaze. The combat was scheduled for sunset. Peter spent the afternoon with Dr. Linda Hayes, the Earth delegation's medical officer, who briefed him on Vesperian physiology. "They're stronger than humans, especially in water," she explained. "Their skin is naturally armored and their reflexes are faster, but they tire more quickly and have poor peripheral vision." Peter nodded, trying to formulate a strategy. "What weapon should I choose?" "Something you're familiar with, but not lethal," Linda advised. "Remember, this is about proving yourself worthy, not defeating an enemy." When the time came, Peter entered the combat arena, a circular platform floating on the ocean surface. Spectators watched from elevated seats surrounding it. Prince Doran stood opposite him, already holding his chosen weapon, a trident-like spear that glowed with energy. Peter had selected a simple staff, similar to ones he had trained with during his security courses at the Space Diplomatic Corps. "Begin," called the herald. Doran attacked immediately, lunging forward with surprising speed. Peter barely dodged the trident's sharp points. The Vesperian prince was stronger and faster, pressing his advantage with a series of quick strikes. Peter remained defensive, watching Doran's movements, looking for patterns. He remembered his training when facing a stronger opponent. Use their strength against them. As Doran lunged again, Peter sidestepped and used his staff to redirect the trident's momentum, causing the prince to stumble forward. The crowd murmured. In surprise, angered, Doran attacked more aggressively. Peter continued his defensive strategy, letting Doran tire himself out. After several minutes, the Vesperian's movements became less precise. Peter saw his opportunity and struck, landing a solid hit to Doran's side. Enraged, Doran swept Peter's legs, sending him crashing to the platform. As Peter rolled away from another attack, he noticed the prince press something on his wrist. Suddenly, water from the ocean rose up and wrapped around Peter's ankles, freezing solid. "Cheating!" someone shouted from the crowd, but before the officials could intervene, Doran charged, trident aimed at Peter's chest. Unable to move his feet, Peter did the only thing he could. He dropped his staff and caught the trident with his bare hands, just inches from his body. Pain shot through his palms as the energy from the weapon burned his skin, but he held on, using the trident as leverage. Peter pulled himself forward and headbutted Doran, breaking the prince's concentration. The ice around his ankles melted. Instantly, Peter could have taken the trident then and used it against Doran, but instead, he retrieved his own staff and backed away, giving the prince a chance to recover. "Fight honorably," Peter said, loud enough for all to hear. "Prove you're worthy of Princess Lyra and the alliance between your worlds." The crowd fell silent. Even Doran seemed surprised by Peter's actions. The combat resumed, but now the dynamic had changed. Peter fought with renewed confidence, meeting Doran's attacks with skilled counterstrikes. Though still physically outmatched, Peter's adaptability and tactical thinking kept him in the fight. Finally, seeing an opening, Peter landed a decisive blow that sent Doran sprawling. He stood over the fallen prince, staff poised for another strike if needed. "Yield," Peter said. For a long moment, Doran glared up at him. Then, reluctantly, he nodded. "I yield." The herald's voice rang out. "The combat is decided. Peter Collins has prevailed through honor and skill. The final trial awaits tomorrow." As Peter left the arena, exhausted but triumphant, he caught Lyra's eye in the crowd. Her smile was radiant, her skin shimmering with the brightest blue he had ever seen. Admiral Wilson met him at the exit. "Well done, Collins," he said, clapping Peter on the shoulder. "Maybe there's something to this challenge after all." The morning of the final trial dawned with all three of Zaxoria's moons visible in the pale sky, a rare alignment that the Zaxorians considered a good omen. Peter stood on his balcony, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. News of the human attempting the ancient trials had spread far beyond Zaxoria. A soft knock at his door announced Lyra's arrival. Her skin was a calm, deep blue today, and she wore ceremonial robes with intricate patterns that seemed to move on their own. "The final trial will begin at midday," she said. "How are you feeling?" Peter flexed his hands, still sore from gripping Doran's trident. "Nervous. No one will tell me what this last trial involves." "That's because it's different for each person," Lyra explained. "The first two trials are fixed wisdom and courage are universal qualities. But the third trial ... She paused. "It reveals what truly makes a worthy ruler." "I'm not trying to become a ruler," Peter reminded her. "I'm just trying to prevent a war." Lyra's skin rippled with shades of purple. "Are you sure that's the only reason you've endured these trials?" Before Peter could answer, Admiral Wilson arrived with urgent news. "Earth Command has sent new instructions," he said, handing Peter a sealed data card. "They've been monitoring the situation closely. Given your surprising success in the first two trials, they've adjusted their position." Peter reviewed the new orders. "They want me to complete the challenge?" Wilson nodded. "The potential benefits of a human with royal status in one of the Confederation's most powerful civilizations are too significant to ignore. But," he added, his expression serious, "they also stress that your actions must benefit Earth's interests. And if those interests conflict with Zaxorian interests, then you'll have a difficult decision to make, Collins." The final trial took place in the Grand Assembly, a massive hall where representatives from 50 different alien civilizations had gathered to witness the event. The room was arranged in tiered seating around a central stage where 3 thrones sat the kings, the queens, and a smaller one that Peter assumed was for Princess Lyra. King Thalassius and Queen Viridian entered first, followed by Lyra, Prince. Doran was present as well, standing with the Vesperian delegation, his expression sour but resigned. Peter was led to the center of the stage. The king stood and addressed the assembly. "For 10,000 years, the final trial has tested what makes a true leader. Some believe it is strength." He glanced at the Vesperian delegation. "Others believe it is intelligence or strategic thinking. Today, Peter Collins of Earth will show us what he believes makes one worthy to join the royal line of Zaxoria." The king turned to Peter. "The trial is simple. Tell us why you should be chosen over Prince Doran, who has prepared his entire life for this role." Peter felt every eye in the room upon him. This wasn't what he had expected. No physical challenge, no puzzle to solve. Just a simple question with an impossible answer. He glanced at Admiral Wilson, who gave a slight nod, then at Lyra, whose expression remained neutral but expectant. "Your Majesty," Peter began, "I came to Zaxoria as a guest, not seeking power or position. I accepted the chalice without understanding its significance, but I chose to face these trials rather than cause conflict between great civilizations." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "Prince Doran has trained his whole life for this role. He knows your laws, your history, your traditions better than I ever could. If rulership were based on preparation alone, he would be the clear choice." Murmurs spread through the crowd. The Vesperian delegation looked surprised, while Admiral Wilson's brow furrowed with concern. "But leadership isn't just about knowing the past," Peter continued. "It's about building the future. I believe what makes a worthy leader is the ability to see beyond boundaries between species, between worlds, between old ways and new possibilities." He turned to address the entire assembly now. "The galaxy is changing. Earth joined the Confederation just 3 years ago, but already we've learned so much from all of you. And perhaps we have something to offer in return: our adaptability, our fresh perspective, our belief that different worlds can work together as equals." Peter faced the king and queen again. "I don't claim to be more worthy than Prince Doran, by Zaxorian standards. But perhaps what Zaxoria needs isn't just someone who preserves your traditions, but someone who can help bridge them to a new era, someone who sees your world through new eyes and values it not because they were born to it, but because they chose it. He looked at Lyra then. And someone who came to admire your daughter not as a princess, but as a person of intelligence, kindness, and wisdom. The hall fell silent. King Thalassius exchanged a long look with the queen before speaking. In 10,000 years, many have stood where you stand now, Peter Collins. Most spoke of their strength, their lineage, their right to rule. None spoke of building bridges between worlds. The king stood. The final trial is complete. Peter Collins has demonstrated the quality we value most in those who would lead our people into the future vision. Applause erupted from many delegations, though the Vesperians remained silent. Admiral Wilson looked both relieved and thoughtful. 3 days later, the wedding ceremony took place in the same hall. Peter wore traditional Zaxorian robes modified slightly to accommodate human physiology. Lyra was radiant, her skin shifting through shades of blue that matched the sacred waters of her world. The ceremony blended elements from both cultures. When they exchanged vows, Peter spoke in perfect Zaxorian, while Lyra responded in carefully practiced English. King Thalassius presided, declaring that this union marked not just a marriage, but a new chapter in galactic relations. After the ceremony, Prince Doran approached the couple. His initial hostility had faded into a grudging respect. You fought honorably, he said to Peter. The Vesperian Empire recognizes your position and offers alliance. Peter extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. After a moment's hesitation, Doran accepted it. At the reception, Admiral Wilson pulled Peter aside. Congratulations, Collins. Or should I say, Your Highness? Peter smiled. I think Peter still works fine, sir. Earth Command is pleased with the outcome. They're already planning a cultural exchange program. Zaxorian scholars to visit Earth while human diplomats study here. And my new role? You'll serve as Earth's ambassador to Zaxoria while also learning your responsibilities as future co-ruler. Wilson's expression turned serious. It won't be easy, balancing loyalty to two worlds. I'm hoping it won't come to choosing between them, Peter said. Later that evening, Peter and Lyra stood on a balcony overlooking both the vast Zaxorian ocean and the stars that led back to Earth. The three moons cast a silver light over everything, making the water look like flowing mercury. Having second thoughts? Lyra asked, noticing his gaze toward the stars. No, Peter said, taking her hand. Just thinking about how strange life can be. 3 months ago, I was just a xenolinguist on a diplomatic vessel. Now I'm married to a princess from another world, and future co-ruler of one of the galaxy's most influential civilizations, Lyra added with a smile. All because you were invited to a wedding, Peter laughed, and unexpectedly became the king's son-in-law. As they looked out at the two horizons before them, ocean and space, Zaxoria and Earth, Peter realized that his greatest challenge was just beginning, but for the first time in his life, he felt he was exactly where he was meant to be.